Horses is a 2025 indie horror game by Santa Ragione Studio that had a lot of buzz and anticipation leading up to its release. Many news outlets and indie game festivals spotlighted Horses during the 3 years it was in development. In December of 2025, Horses was the #1 best-selling game on the GOG storefront, and it was similarly high-ranked among the best-selling games in itch.io storefront, although, to my knowledge, it never reached the #1 spot. Its reception has been relatively positive. It's not being hailed as a masterpiece or anything, but for the most part, critics and fans alike seem to agree that it is a good 2-hour experience. But if you've heard anything about Horses, it's unlikely to be the critical accolades or its bestseller status. Instead, most likely what you're familiar with is that Horses is banned from both Steam and the Epic Games Store. And the reasons for this are not entirely clear. The game does contain nudity, although it is always censored. Genitals and breasts are never visible, instead they are pixelated. And these scenes are clearly not intended to be pornographic. In fact, they are incredibly uncomfortable, as is much of the game's narrative. Having played through the entire 3-hour experience myself, I can say nothing in the game violates Steam's general content guidelines. Steam themselves have also refused to cite any specific scenes or elements that they deem to be inappropriate for distribution. To be clear, the specific banning of Horses from Steam and Epic is entirely unrelated to the payment processor issues that happened late last year and forced some adult games to be ditched from storefronts. These were individual decisions made by Steam and Epic without any sort of pressure from outside sources. Personally, I find the decision to cut this game from the store and give no reason why very disturbing on the part of both Steam and Epic. And it should serve as a harsh reminder that trusting these companies to serve as de facto monopolies for digital storefronts is bad for games, as at any time they can decide, if they disagree with a game's politics or theming, to cast it into oblivion. I want to briefly read the statement that Santa Ragione had to these bannings, because I think it's important, and I agree with basically everything they said. "We are committed to producing challenging adult storytelling. Horses uses grotesque, subversive imagery to confront power, faith, and violence. We reject the subjective obscenity standards, and believe that this kind of moralizing censorship evokes a darker past, in which vague notions of decency were used to silence artists. Games are an artistic medium, and lawful works for adults should remain accessible. We respect players enough to present the game as intended and let adults choose what to play. Lawful works should not be made unreachable by monopolistic storefronts' opaque decisions. Steam publicly downplays human curation in favor of algorithmic sales optimization, and yet intervenes with censorship when a game's artistic vision does not align with what the platform owners consider acceptable art. Steam's behavior passively shapes which titles developers feel safe creating, pushing preemptive censorship." Whether or not you agree with the politics presented in Horses, I think we should all be concerned with the censorship of it. Although, I also happen to be of the opinion that the message in this piece of art is incredibly important in this day and age, and the discomfort that comes with experiencing it is kind of a key part of that message. Although I will warn anyone interested that this game does involve very uncomfortable depictions of violence, abuse, bigotry, and dehumanization. On screen is the in-depth trigger warning that Santa Ragione provided for the game, and it's also going to be in the description below. So if any of these topics are a sensitive subject for you, proceed with caution. I will also say that the game features flashing lights in a lot of sections, so if you have epilepsy or sensitivity of some other kind, it might be wise to proceed with caution. The premise of Horses is your father is forcing you to work on a farm for 14 days, hoping that it will make you man up some more. At the beginning of the game, you meet the farmer, and he gives you a tour of the facility while explaining what your duties will be. Basic stuff like feeding the dog, picking vegetables, watering the crops, and taking care of his prized horses. However, when he shows you his horses, it becomes immediately apparent that they are just naked people with horse masks locked onto their faces. But nobody on the farm acts like this is out of the ordinary at all. These people are almost never referred to as people. Instead, exclusively, they are called horses. And they are treated like labor animals, including having violence enacted upon them if they do not perform their tasks to their master's liking. The only other person who even acknowledges the horses are people is a guest on the 6th day. And she says that even though they are people, the way that they used to live, a lot of people found it unacceptable. And this, combined with the various scenes talking about sin, sort of spell out the subtext if you hadn't picked up on it. This is a game where you are in a privileged position, but that privilege is upheld by the dehumanization of another group. Yet, if you even attempt to acknowledge their humanity, you risk your own safety in the process. In fact, being turned into a horse yourself is a not-so-subtle threat hanging over your head. The guest even indicates that she hopes you can live the rest of your life as a human. It's an incredibly uncomfortable scenario, and I think it is elevated by its interactive nature. The fact that you need to be complicit in this system in order for the game to progress further intensifies the uncomfortable, guilty feeling the game is going for. About halfway through my playthrough, when I was filling out the daily tasks as you would in any job simulator, I slipped into that oh-so-familiar Zen-like stance, only to catch myself and realize that I was ignoring the atrocities going on around me. For a brief moment, the game had stopped being horror and was just normal, and that in and of itself is incredibly disturbing, and very much is part of the intended experience. It makes you as the player feel indirectly complicit in this fictional system, the same way that, let's face it, those of us who are privileged enough to watch video essays on indie games are likely indirectly complicit in real-life systems of dehumanization. This was an incredibly uncomfortable game, and it's one that I don't think I'll ever find myself replaying. But it's also one that's going to stick with me for a long time. This is a profound and, in my opinion, important work of art. And if you think you have the capability to play through it, I would encourage you to consider doing so. It's available on GOG, itch.io, Humble, and direct from the developer themselves with no DRM. I'll include links to all below, as well as a link to the FAQ on the Steam banning. This isn't the sort of thing that I normally talk about on the channel, but I do think it's an important one to shine a light on. And I'm only able to comfortably deviate from my normal video style thanks to the support of my patrons. So, I should probably thank them. Thank you, Glupshido, Electric Giga, Erica Ford, Perg Knight, YLO1, George Grenville the 7th PM, Jamie Collins, Arvis, Crispy Matthews, Floahay, Amy Hazel, Hungry Hearts, Love S. Roman, Shinthia, Faulty Videos, Kyle Madison, Derek Williams, Anna Cabana, The Daily Fugle, Faye, Magic Bite, Thoughtful Insanity, Robin Goodfeller, JT Spritter, Ziggy WSB, Dysike, Chris, Root Beer Pants, Queen Elizam, Control Tejas, Roman Chromantic, Nick Knack Hammersack, Carrier Has Left, Angel Nap Caceres, Zan Whiff, Flynn Gone, Edward C, Cyrockin 2, Cabbage, SUP, Caius Cole, Bree, Punchfighter Champion, Eggman, Maxine the Vampire Queen, Dragonback Lancer, Sardonic Muse, Zero Gamer, Femtal Illness, Wannabe Cinnabon, Punk Tattoo Guy, Key the Iron Idol, Calamity Callie, Jackson McMahon, Saren Gerlixy, Rezi, Andu Ria, Gameboo, Carosa, Firant, Your Doctor, Frozen Helm, Patwit, Pillow Willow, Girl Boss, Lizard Bongwater, Christopher Bueno, Marin McLean, Jaden, Dylan Solis, Some Trades, Guizia555, Smaz Ruby, Zychrom, Robin D, Alenby, Hound Dogs, They Thom, Clan, and especially my Jagans, Your Best Friend, 9000, Adele, Alexander Roper, Sensitive Luigi, Siggy, and Lil Man. If you are considering having your name added to this list, please buy horses first instead. I think the dev deserves your money much more than I do, but there is a link to my Patreon down at the very bottom of the description if you have any pocket change left over. Regardless of what you choose to do though, I hope you have a wonderful day. Stay safe, gamers.